Okay, well, welcome today to our graduate school admissions essays. My name is Stephanie Kitt. I'm the director here at the Center for Career Development. I've got a partner with me today that I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Ann Langendorfer. I'm a lecturer in the Department of English, and I also work as a writing coach in the Writing Center. So I'm here in that capacity as my Writing Center coach hat.
Thank you for joining us. And one thing I want to mention before I forget is that this is the month of October, which is typically graduate school preparation month. So there were calendars in the back. We have a host of activities all month long, and we hope that you will continue to join us. I want to draw your attention to the October 22nd event when we have Don Asher on campus. He has been coming here for over 20 years, and students consistently rate him very highly as being both helpful and very engaging in his presentation and seminars. So we hope that you can join us on the 22nd to learn more broadly strategies for successful application to graduate school. But today our topic is admissions essays, and I feel like they are one of the hardest parts of the application and probably take the most time. So it's something that you want to think about and invest the time in, and hopefully what you learn today and the resources you gather will assist you in this process. But other than the essay, you are a lot of scores and numbers to the admissions committee. You are a GPA, you're a GRE score, and the essay can be the way that they get to know you more personally. They get to learn a bit about your story, some of the skills you're going to bring, certainly your communication skills in terms of writing, your motivation and commitment to the field of study that you're applying for. And you'll find that they can vary in terms of the questions asked of you. Sometimes you'll see it called a personal statement. You might see it statement of purpose. Those terms could be used interchangeably. But basically the statement of purpose is really thinking more about why you want to pursue this graduate degree, your relevant qualifications, the experiences you've had, your current situation. It's a bit more about what you've done. The personal statement is going to show a little bit more about your personality and what drives you, how you stand out from others, any type of extenuating circumstances or challenges that you've been through. And as we think about the schools and the programs that you're applying to, you're going to find that some will really emphasize the statement more so than others. So you might find that some admissions committees are really putting that on the back burner, and they are looking more at your scores, and maybe they go to the essay as the final part to tip the scales. Whereas in other programs, it could be more emphasized. And Kaplan, who does a lot of test prep, they did a study of admissions officers and just asked some questions about where they do place value. And I thought that this was interesting. One of the questions asked, which would you most consider to be an application killer? And a poorly written essay was answered 8% of the time. So they're not listing that so highly, yet in that 8%, that wouldn't be a good situation. So it's still worth investing that time. And then when reviewing a prospective student's application, which of the following do you review first? And I thought it was interesting that actually 26% said that they review the personal statement first. So that would indicate quite a bit of emphasis. Many of you have talked about healthcare related programs or helping professions like social work, counseling, psychology. I think in those cases they really are looking to find what's motivating you to pursue these areas. I think when you get to fields like engineering, we didn't have a whole lot of hard sciences in this room that I remember hearing. In that case, I think they're going to look a lot more towards your research experience and your research interest. So content, how do you know what to include? And some of the questions might be very specific, which will give you an opportunity to just fully and completely answer what they are asking of you. But then there's going to be those broader statements that give you more flexibility of what you can include, and that's what I'm going to cover here in a minute, is just what are some of those universal topics that you would consider putting in if you find yourself answering a more broad statement. I'd like to hear if anybody, is anybody currently in the application process right now? Does anybody remember what they've been asked, like a question? Can I ask you?
It generally just wants to know why I'm interested in the field. Since it's a pre-specialty thing, I get my RN during the program, so they want to understand that I know what I'm getting myself into. And then just a little bit about myself. I think they included a little bit about explaining what brought you to that point, but mainly just that you understand the field.
Okay, so more career-driven and about your story. Do you remember one?
So for Georgia Tech, for their quantitative marketing program, they want my research interest in projects and then career objectives and then unique aspects of your candidacy for the admissions council to consider.
Okay, all right, thank you for those examples. I just wanted to share questions that I've collected over the years that I've found interesting. This one was from Michigan State University in their counseling educational psych program. And these 3 pages are all directions for their essay. So it starts that in the first paragraph of your personal statement, 1 or 2 sentences, you should make clear the purpose of your writing. And then in the second paragraph, you will interpret your background for the Graduate Admissions Committee. In the third paragraph will be a description of your professional goals. So they have really spelled it out for you. Whereas a mechanical, aerospace, and biomedical engineering program asks for a brief statement of purpose, less than 1 page, including research interest and a study plan. So you could run the gamut in terms of what you'll get. And it's just most important that you're paying careful attention and that you are fully answering every question they ask of you. So what are some of these universal concepts that you want to be sure that you include? And I think the big one is really, why are you interested in this field and how did this interest develop? Thinking back, was there a moment in time when something clicked? Did you have an experience with a PT yourself that made you want to pursue this? Was it a particular professor, even a high school teacher, that connected with you? Some of you mentioned social work. Did you see an injustice, or were you in a volunteer situation where something really grabbed your attention and made you think that you would want to pursue that? And again, I just want to pause right now. Does anybody have a story? Can anybody identify that moment when they knew what they wanted to do that they'd be willing to share? Any aha moments or influential people? Mm-hmm.
Interesting seminar when I worked at Walt Disney World, and it was a marketing seminar about how they use the data from the magic bands that their guests wear to influence crowd levels and customer satisfaction while in the parks. And it was that moment that I realized I really want to work with big data to help influence those customer decisions and retain customers. So
that could be the opening of your essay right there, literally, right? She could form that because that's what you want to do. You want to think about that interest and how it started. How have you prepared academically and experientially? I think one of the biggest differences between undergraduate programs and graduate school is that in undergraduates, honestly, there's an assumption that a certain % of people won't be retained. UT, we lose, unfortunately, over 10% of our students just from the first to second year. But in graduate school, they really want to believe that you're going to be successful there. So they want to know that you are prepared to succeed in their program. So this will come into play thinking about your chosen major, your coursework, maybe you chose a minor, internships you sought out. I know in child and family studies you're required to do practicums. How did you choose those settings? What type of volunteer hours have you done? Have you been a TA in a class? Anything that you can think about that has led again, led you to be prepared, that has contributed to your strengths? Have you been an active leader on campus? These could be organizations that you've joined, even sororities and fraternities, if you're in professional associations attached to your major. Really reflect back on what you've done. And then also your career goals. What do you want to do with this degree? And I would say that's another way that grad school differs, in that when you come to undergraduate, I think it's totally fine to be exploratory and to figure it all out. That's what we do in the Center for Career Development. But honestly, in graduate school, they want to think that you are much clearer in terms of your career goals. And I think that sometimes I hear students feeling hesitant to commit because they think maybe if I commit to a path, like a certain type of medicine, then they're going to hold me to that. And that's not the case. No one's ever going to go back to your admissions essay and say, hey, you said this, you got to stick to this path. But I think you're going to do yourself a favor if you can present as being more decided. And so if that means circling back and doing some research so that you can effectively discuss the type of industry you see yourself working in. Are you going to go work for a nonprofit or a business or a government agency? What specialty do you want to pursue within these healthcare fields? Or if you're a social worker, what age group appeals to you? Do you like the geriatric crowd? Do you like children? Do you like a school setting? Is there a problem, an issue that appeals more to you? So think about your career goals, and you want to articulate those in your essay. And anytime you can use examples, that's going to make it richer. So just like in an interview, if they asked you what are your 3 greatest strengths, you don't simply want to list, well, I'm a hard worker, I'm a good leader, and I'm an ethical person. You want to say how you're a hard worker because you maintained a 3.5 GPA while holding down a 25-hour-a-week job and still having an officer position in your student organization. So thinking of examples to communicate these to the committee. I'm not going to linger too long on this because I don't think we have a whole lot of folks in the room that are applying to research heavy, but it sounds like your question does ask you to address your research interest. But what I would say generally is that if you find yourself needing to do that, think about any type of undergraduate research you were involved in. If you worked with a particular professor or advisor, you want to name those people. You can name the results. Indicate the results of the research work you did. If you've participated in Eureka or any of the other undergraduate research types of programs here on campus, you'll want to share that. So even if it's just one project that you can go back and think through, I know in the College of Business you do a lot of project work, and if you can reflect on something you did in that scenario to share. And then if they are asking about your research interest, it's going to be important that you start researching what the faculty in that department are working on and look for ways that your research interest could dovetail with some of the faculty because that could help your admissions prospects. I don't know if anybody finds themselves in this situation, but do we have any seniors who you have a spring experience planned, but you're already applying to grad school? Okay, so it is acceptable and encouraged for you to go ahead and include that and write about that in your essay or application. So if you know you're going to be doing that final internship or practicum or field placement or just a good job that's coming up, it is great for you to go ahead and include that and let them know that that's an experience you'll be having in between now and when you actually arrive at grad school. I also think it's important for you to address why you want to go to the particular programs you're applying to. And I know that this causes extra work because you have to customize, and it's okay to start with a base statement or essay, but you want to adjust it for every program. Every university, every department wants to believe that it's different, it's special, that it offers something unique. And you partly need to uncover what that is or what that fit is for you. Maybe something about the curriculum or the ability to get some type of experience that they offer, that they talk about, or maybe it's the size of their program. If you are applying to a geographic location that represents a big move, let's say that you've always done work in the Southeast, or you're from Tennessee and you went to UT and you're applying to Washington State, it's a good idea to specifically address that you're open and looking for a new experience geographically. They want to take people from diverse parts of the country, but they also want to believe that you're successful. You're going to be successful there, and that you've thought about where you're relocating to. One of the comments I've heard Don Asher make before is that he's talked to admissions directors at NYU, and that they say if a student doesn't address living in the city in their essay, that really puts them down, because living in New York City is such a commitment and it's so different. They want to know that people understand what that would be like. So I encourage you to think about the school, the location. And I did want to just read a brief excerpt. This is Donald Asher's graduate admissions essay book. I find it to be a very useful resource. Many examples in here, and we do have a copy in the Career Center that you could come and take a look at. But this is a little part just at the very bottom of the essay, this person's last paragraph. They've addressed the why here by saying, UCB's reputation as an innovative, qualitative, and highly regarded program seems to provide the ideal combination of rigor and freedom. A perusal of recent dissertation topics indicated that students are allowed the autonomy to take on projects that don't necessarily follow the work of their advisors and that are quite ambitious in scope. A meeting with graduate assistant Elaine Talmadge confirmed this impression. As someone with a history of taking on challenging and intensive research projects, I believe that I would thrive in such an environment. I hope to build a foundation for a long and productive academic career in sociology. So through that paragraph, you can see that this person has done research. So she's looked up the dissertation topics of the other sociology students. You can see that she's woven in that I actually spoke to a current student there. Maybe that was through email or Skype or a personal visit. But again, you don't have to go on, but this could be a nice way to conclude your essay. Discussing grades or test scores. The essay might be an appropriate place for you to include some information. Maybe you're not a great standardized test taker, but your GPA really speaks to the quality of work that you're capable of. You can make comments and statements about that in your essay. You could make a parallel between your ACT score, for example, and your college GPA. Like maybe your ACT wasn't through the roof, but you've done really well at UT. And then you get back your GRE score, and likewise that one's not so strong, but you could indicate that you really feel like your GPA is going to be the best proof of what you're capable of. You don't have to reveal, but maybe you started in another major and that other major was really hard. Maybe you started in engineering and you had a rough first semester or a rough year and it's been challenging to dig out of that hole. You can recalculate your grades in different ways and write about them. So what happens if you take out that one semester when you were in that other major? Or maybe you had a semester where somebody close to you passed away and it was challenging, or you had an illness. If you take out those grades, what does your GPA look like? The key is it has to be in the past and it has to be resolved. So if you can isolate some sort of problem or situation that might help your grades look better, you can address it there. You do want to keep this brief. You don't want to go on, draw too much attention to it. But again, it can just help fill in the blanks for the admissions committee about your academic progress up to this point. So ultimately, the committee wants to know, what motivates you, What are your career goals and are they realistic? So again, have you thought through what you're going to do with this degree? Do you need this degree to achieve what it is that you desire? Are you a good fit for their program? Is what you want to do something that they can help carry you there towards? Do they have the right type of program and classes to help you achieve your goal? We didn't mention anybody here being in law school or interested in law school, but if somebody was interested in being an environmental attorney and that's not the specialty of this particular school, then that might not feel as good of a fit. Are you prepared and can you handle the challenge? We've addressed that. And then finally, what will you contribute to the profession? So the people in this department, they are working in this field. They'd like to know that ultimately you're going to be able to carry on the work of this profession and contribute to it one day, maybe with your own research or the work that you'll do. I like to show a couple of quotes from some people who actually work in admissions. So this was graduate engineering program in the California Institute of Technology. Said, I think the main thing is to see whether the student is aware of and has thought about the field to which he or she is applying. So right, this is a constant theme we keep hearing. You need to really be in tune with your goals and what you want to do. And then you really have to let the admissions committee know what it is about this program in particular that interests you. And this is School of Public and International Affairs at Princeton University. So if I had to say, two really big highlights, you really want to make sure you're including these in your content. We did have several of you who are interested in medical, nurse practitioner, PT, OT types of programs. And let me just pull out a few comments that I've got here. Okay. So from what I've read and talked to about people in the healthcare field, I think they believe that you can write about a lot of different topics as long as it demonstrates something about your personality, that it conveys why medicine or healthcare, what resonates about this field for you. Do you have any characteristics that will help you be successful in this area? The Association of American Medical Colleges, they have core competencies that they believe medical students should develop. Those are competencies like interpersonal competencies, which could be cultural competencies, teamwork, oral communication, interpersonal, so the intrapersonal, interpersonal, thinking and reasoning. If you can look up these competencies and then find a way to address them in your essay as to how you've developed them, what demonstrates that you have these competencies, that could be a good approach to take. The why unique, tell a story that's deeply personal. You don't want to be generic. You really need to avoid the whole, I want to help people and I love science, because that's the huge bulk of what they get. So you've got to go beyond that so that they remember you and your story. In the secondary applications, you want to, again, talk about why this particular school and fill in any gaps that your standardized essay or application that you didn't have a chance to explain, maybe because you were limited by words. Okay. No law school, is that right? Okay, we'll skip this. And then MBA school, we didn't really have MBA. We've got Masters in Business Analytics. Is that right? Marketing, PhD. I think what business schools are really looking for is they're looking for leadership. They're looking for the internship experiences you've had. If you're coming straight from an undergrad program, I think internships are going to be really important. They want to see instances of teamwork, effective communication, diverse cultural experiences, really thinking about not only what are you going to get out of the program, but how are you going to contribute to it. Okay, So those are just a few specialty areas to think about. Some of what you want to avoid, really going beyond your resume. So it's almost like the cover letter. You want to reflect on your resume, but give them the big picture of how it all ties together. What did you learn through this collection of experiences? You know, how does your resume indicate who you are? You don't want to be too gimmicky. There's lots of stories out there about people writing about their statement of porpoise and like showing a picture of how they swam with the porpoises over the summer. You know, things along those lines. So keeping it very professional. You don't want to focus too much on the negative. It can be effective to talk about any type of challenge that you've overcome, and that might be a really good approach. But if it is, you want to make the spin more positive. Don't spend a lot of time talking about past majors or prior career goals. So again, maybe you started in something that you're not ending up in. If you need to briefly mention it because there's a tie-in or because you're talking about those grades, for example, but don't waste your precious time really going over how, for the first 2 years you really thought you'd be this and then you changed your mind. Lack of customization, the vague generalities and trite statements we talked about in terms of like, I love science and want to help people. Be careful with religion and politics unless you're actually applying to a like religious studies or a political science type of program, because you never know who is going to be reading your essay, and if those beliefs don't align with theirs, it could be a reason for them to not accept you. We have a question?
Masters in Public Health and Bioethics. So, do I avoid the controversial subjects for this?
So she asked, she's applying to Emory, and it's bioethics and public health. I think that, bioethics could take you towards that, to where you would need to address it. So I would write your essay, but I would get somebody to read it. We're going to be sharing resources for that, and maybe just get an opinion to make sure that you haven't put forth a view that could be polarizing. Anne, would you add anything to that?
Now, from being in higher education, that the way we talk about religion and politics in the academy, right, in the university, is different than how the general public talks about religion and politics. And so one of the things that you can be thoughtful about is, do you have a good way of talking about your own sense of what bioethics means to you at this point? And would that story, the way you talk about bioethics, help persuade the committee that you're the perfect person to enter this field? I think that bioethics is a lot like studying religion or politics, right? If you're in political science or you're a religious studies major, you have sophisticated ways for talking about religion that the rest of us don't have. So I think that use the experiences you've had here at UT to inform how you talk about that, and absolutely consult with your advisors and professors in those fields. So if you have taken Intro to Bioethics here at UT, or you are currently in religious studies class or political science class, those professors are experts at thinking about how they present that work to each other, right? Because this is who you're applying to, is somebody who's an expert in bioethics. And I think you should use those academic resources to help you learn how to talk about, really complex and really difficult subjects in a sophisticated way, because that's what you're running towards, is a difficult problem in our culture.
Good answer. Thank you. And actually, I think we're about at our switch point. So we're going to switch mics.
Is that good? Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay. I have one that I forgot to give out to everybody, so if we get to that point, I'll double double check with you. Yeah. So the first thing that I want to do is just ask you to think about how we do what Stephanie just told us. So all of that rich content, it makes sense, right? You're like, yeah, I got it. I've got to be memorable. I'm not going to be trite. How do we do that, right? So in your packet, you have one that's called Brainstorming Ideas for Grad School Applications. And you've got a whole long list, a huge list of all the ways that you could think about generating ideas for an essay. Basically, if you answer all of these self-assessment questions, right? If you went through and answered every single one of these, you would have done the kind of brainstorming that really is required to come up with the best possible ways of presenting yourselves. Some answers will not actually get you anywhere, right? For your personal story, for your personal setup, you're just not going to be able to give an answer that's memorable or interesting or leads us in a good direction. I was thinking about this list. I think it's a great list. I think there are really good possibilities for each of these. I want to focus on the one that says, have you ever experienced a moment of epiphany as if your eyes were open to something you were previously blind to? So I want you to take a piece of paper out. If you don't have a piece of paper, use the back of the paper you've got there. Take a pen out. And this is what I do in my writing classes. I'm going to give you a couple minutes, at least 3 sentences that answer this question that you have on the sheet in front of you. Have you ever experienced a moment of epiphany as if your eyes were open to something you were previously blind to? So tell me a moment where somehow you've been changed. An epiphany usually refers to a change moment. What's a moment you remember where things changed? You had a snap. So give me 3 sentences. It's not a test, but you know, a pen and a piece of paper. Give yourself 3 sentences. You're not giving me the 3 sentences. You're going to give yourself the 3 sentences. Those 3 sentences are going to be your gift to your future self when you're sitting down to write. Life's always been the same. Nothing's changed ever. Okay, so you got a couple sentences down maybe? Does somebody want to share their epiphany? Is anybody willing to share an epiphany with us? An epiphany that you'd be willing to, you don't have to tell us the whole thing. You just tell us what's the epiphany? What was the change? You have a change to tell us about? It can be small, it can be big. Great.
It sounds kind of cliche, but honestly figuring out what I wanted to do was kind of a really big epiphany.
How did you figure it out?
It's like I don't even really know. It was like just a lot of like striving for like job security and money and a bunch of like medical school, all these different things. And then kind of coming to the, all of these parts, like, I don't even know. That's what I need to figure out, I guess.
Yeah, what was that moment? Is there a moment, right?
I was honestly working and like writing a lot of different programs. Like I was like at my job, like on a computer, like not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And like, I was just like, I don't even like this. I'm making myself like this. And then I was like, why don't I just like go to grad school and explore one specific topic, like exercise physiology, like I like, and then apply that to things that I like. So it was just like an epiphany of like, this is an option that I didn't know.
That's perfect. Okay, here's the thing. Did you hear it? Did you hear when she talked about the epiphany? First she said, oh, I don't know, and then she said it. What did she say? What's your name? Lauren. Lauren said, I was sitting at my computer, and can you envision her, even if you just had the written word, can you envision her sitting at a computer at work, not doing what she's supposed to be doing, because whatever she's doing at work is not satisfying, is not interesting, right? So let's think really clearly about what made the difference there. This is not a, like, I was hiking and I fell and I was hanging off a cliff, right? The drama is very small. The drama is small. But that small drama in the moment, as soon as you said I was sitting at my computer at work, not working, but writing and thinking about what I really cared about, what really mattered to me, that moment that we can envision you as a character in your own life, a full person, that really matters. Okay, so how can we know who you are? Well, we need to think about how we're going to get that structure. How are we going to get a structure that conveys that how, all right? Now, you all have been writing a lot of really boring essays thinking that that's what instructors want from you, are really boring essays. I promise you we don't. And that's like my full-time job, to persuade students not to write me boring essays, right? But you do know something from all that essay writing, and that is that an essay has to have a structure, has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, introduction, body, conclusion, right? Something like that. You can use that for your essays to get into graduate school. You should always follow the directions, follow the directions. And in most cases, you're looking for about 1,000 words, less than 2 single-spaced pages. So a double-spaced page is about 250 words. A single-spaced page is about 500 words. And so 2 single-spaced pages would be about 1,000 words. Most applications are not going to want more than that. And if you find yourself with a 6-page answer, you definitely want to come work with someone in career services or in the writing center to figure out how you can say it more concisely, because you don't want to test people's patience. So here's another way to think about structure, and that is you're going to give your story some kind of narrative arc. Now, not all narratives work the same way. Some drama is big and some drama is small. Sometimes the arc is really profound and sometimes it's little, right? But the beginning and middle and end has to indicate something, right? Now this particular drawing is illustrating a story arc of heroes and role models and what happens. They face an obstacle, this is a low point, they begin to improve, and then they achieve something, right? So the achievement, whatever your achievement is only as interesting as where you started, right? It's more interesting, right? Many of you are excellent students, straight A, 3-point-something GPAs, done all this stuff, have this amazing life experience. More interesting to understand that achievement if we can see where you came from. In what way was it an improvement, or in what way did it change you? When I asked you to reflect for a few minutes about some epiphany you've had, it does not have to be, I was hanging from a cliff and I saved myself using my wits and my first aid training, right? It doesn't have to be some dramatic story. Your drama might be small. It might be sitting at a computer at a job that you really hate. That story is really affecting because it is something that many of us can envision. We could be that person. I have been that person, sitting at a computer, not doing my work, doing something or writing myself towards something that is more meaningful, that speaks to us. Now, we would need to know another part of the backstory. Why not this work? Why this other path? We need to understand another story that would get us to, what was it, physiology? Yeah, exercise. We're definitely missing part of the story there, right? So we need to get to that story. I think it's really important to think about in what way you see yourself as a character in your own story, and in what way are you narrating your own story. When the head of the Writing Center, Dr. Benson, was starting to prepare materials because we were seeing more and more people coming in talking to us about writing applications, one of the things she did was go talk to directors of admissions at law schools, at programs where they knew our students were going to apply, and ask them, what did you want? So one of the things that you have in front of you is a advice from graduate admissions directors, and if you don't have that, I have more copies. You can look at it. It has the Writing Center logo on the bottom. And they told us again and again, tell a story, start early, do a lot of planning, and then they had some don'ts, many of which Stephanie has already addressed. But this tell a story part really stood out to us, and I think that it's really interesting that it was law school admissions directors that told us this. They're very good at understanding what language does. Outside of a humanities degree, a law degree is one of those fields that values language the most and understands that one word can make the difference between whether you win a case or lose a case, whether you settle big or settle small, right? So I think that when we say, okay, we want you to tell a story, it doesn't have to be once upon a time, right? In a castle, there lived a poor princess, right? You don't have to be a sad princess or a valiant knight in your story, right? But you do have to have a story, and that story is something that is genuine. It can't be in any way a false story. It can't be something that we think we've heard before. It has to have details that enrich it and that help us see you as a very particular kind of person sitting at a keyboard, right? So if many of us can envision that moment where we're sitting at a computer and we're doing something that we know is not what we're supposed to be doing because our brain is elsewhere, our whole body yearns to be somewhere else, doing something else. If you've had that moment, you've got to make it specific to you. What building were you in? What kind of computer were you sitting in front of? What kind of job were you doing that was so ill-suited to you, right? And you've also got to have another story about how well-suited you were to this other thing. So it has to be a genuine story. It has to be an honest story. Yeah, it's important. Okay, so like I said, you're a character in your own story. You're also a narrator of that story. That means you have absolute control. In high school, when you were reading, I don't know, what were you forced to read? What's a novel you were forced to read? What did you have to read? What did you have to read? I couldn't hear it again. Oh, Gilgamesh and Scarlet Letter. Scarlet Letter, that's perfect. So as an American literature professor, I would just say, yeah, like I know what it felt like in high school to have to read the Scarlet Letter, and that didn't feel fun. I don't think that we should teach Scarlet Letter in high schools, right? I think that you would actually have a much more meaningful experience with the Scarlet Letter in college, right? But that aside, in that story, who narrates, right? Does she get to narrate her own story? No, right? In your story, the story you tell in an admissions essay, you not only get to tell your story, but you get to tell it in the way you want, and you get to control how much you reveal about who you are. And that who you are, that's your character, right? Your character might be a strong, brave, bold person. You might feel in your heart of hearts, that's who I am. But if somebody else wrote the story, they might see, oh, there's that shy blonde girl who always sits in the back of the class. There's that talkative girl who's always raising her hand, right? Whoever you are, you get to be that person, and you get to tell us who that person is, and it's got to be a very specific story. So anytime you tell us a story, know that you're going to tell us exactly who you are, not just by making a claim. I'm strong, I'm persistent. Anyone can make that claim. In fact, maybe all of us could, right? I'm persistent, I'm strong, I'm smart, I'm good at this thing, I'm good at that thing, right? If I said right now, on your piece of paper, write down 3 characteristics that you think are abstract qualities that you'd say, these represent me. These are character traits. Go ahead, give me 3. Give me 3 characteristics that are quintessential who you are. You got 3 personal traits, characteristics that you would say, these are the ones that apply to me. Got 3? 3 personal characteristics, 3 abstract qualities you would say, like persistence or strength, or I know I'm stuck on those too. Somebody's got to give me some other examples. 3 personal qualities, 3 things that you think, yeah, that's how I would describe myself. Or that's how, another one you can do is, how would my friends describe me? That's another one. If you couldn't come up with 3, I bet your friends have 3 qualities that they would describe you as. 3 qualities. You got 3? And have you got 3 to share? You got 3? Somebody on this side of the room? Help us out. You're going to write hers? So mean. You got 3? You got 3 qualities? Okay, tell me your 3. Tell me your 3.
Brave, empathetic, and taking action.
Yeah, brave, empathetic, and action-oriented. I like this. Anybody else got 3 different ones? You got 3 different ones? How one of you guys? You got 3 different ones? No? No? Not? You got 3 different ones? Yeah?
Determined, intelligent, and honest.
Whew! Okay, look. I know, because this is a room of vols, I know that we have some amazing people in here, and we can't know the half of it. We don't know what you've been through, because we don't know your stories yet. But those sets of 3, those characteristics, whatever you wrote down for yourself or what you're still scheming in your head, what am I? What are those? You could say that. You could just say, I'm empathetic. Do you believe me? Why? You have no reason to believe me. I might be the meanest person you've ever met, right? If you say it on the page, I'm empathetic, we don't believe you. We don't know you. You're nobody, right? That's what Emily Dickinson says, right? Who are you? Nobody. I'm nobody too, right? We're all a bunch of nobodies until we promise something more. And how we promise something more is not just saying, I'm empathetic, but literally showing it. And we need some kind of example, some kind of illustration, specific language, concrete details. We need something. I think that when we tell stories about ourselves, we have an impulse to tell about the change, right? To say, I was sitting at my keyboard, and then not to follow through and tell us what the outcome was. So that one bad day that sticks with us when we were sitting at our keyboard, typing, realizing, wow, this job is not for me. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. We got to know the outcome in order for this to feel satisfying, especially in a short 1 to 2 page essay. We've got to know what happened. So the outcome is, I leapt from my desk and I tore out the door telling my boss, never again, right? No, I mean, we know it's not that dramatic, but maybe you said, you know, at the end of that summer, I decided I was never going to go back into an accounting office because I wasn't going to be an accountant. Or I made a decision that day. I was going to switch my major to exercise physiology because what I really cared about was the human body, and here's how I learned to care about that. Here's why that was always on my brain when I was sitting at the desk, right? I'm making up a story here, right? Okay, but we're focused on the outcomes. Okay, so what I want to do for you in the next few minutes is give you some examples of how people start their stories, and you tell me if this is what you thought stories looked like, okay? How did stories start? So stories reveal. As I pulled on the brass door handle and slowly opened the massive wooden door, I motioned for Alex to go on inside. His face lit up with amazement. Do those guitars and costumes really belong to Kiss? Okay, this is the opening of someone's essay, right? All right, how about another one? Stories that can appeal to our senses. The screaming of the little boy's mother shattered the relative serenity in the room. Whew. That's a different tone than finding all of Kiss's equipment in your closet. I mean, what's this? What do you want to know? What do you think is going to happen here when you see this? When you see this one, let's stick with this one for a second. What do you think is going to happen? What's happening with this? Why would you start your essay with this? You have a sense? Why would you start there? What's he going to tell us here? Where do you think that's going? How did he get to having Kiss's guitars and costumes in his closet? And why is he showing them to his friend Alex? We want to know, right? We're very curious. How is this going to happen, right? How are we going to learn? Okay, what about this one? This is the sad one. Screaming of a little boy's mother, shattering the quiet. Where is this? Where's the set? Where's the set? Where's the set? I'll left room it over here. Where's it set? Where's it set? Can you guess where it's at? In someone's home? Where else? Where else could it be set? In a hospital room? Oh, where else? And you got any other pictures of where this is happening? In a Catholic church. Oh man, right? So wherever this is, it was quiet, and now someone's screaming. A woman's screaming, and she's screaming because of something about her son, right? Woo! Right there, we want to know what's happening. We want to know more about why I'm observing this, right? Remember, I'm writing this. Why am I writing about this particular person having this particular trauma, right? Okay. How about this one? This is a story that helps us travel metaphorically, right? High up in the Venezuelan Andes, staring through the eyepiece of a 5-ton Schmidt telescope, I made the decision to leave physics. That's a dramatic epiphany story. Where's this going? Where do you think this is going? They're leaving physics to head where? What are they going to do instead of physics? You get a sense where they might go? Where are they going to go? You got an idea? Oh, maybe it's related to visiting Venezuela. Ah, that's interesting. What else could they be doing if they're leaving physics? Where could they be going? Yeah, where could they be? Astronomy, right? They could maybe be going into astronomy since they were there looking at the telescope. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we are curious, right? We want to know, where does this person go? Great. How about this one? I like this one. Stories that really directly ask us a question. Who would have thought I'd spent 2 years of my life talking about parasites? Yeah, who would have thunk it? What is this student going to tell us next? What are they going to tell us next about themselves? Yeah, like maybe how they had an internship at the CDC, or maybe they're just in a lab here at UT looking at bugs, parasites, right? They're in a laboratory somewhere. So you can see this passionate biology student, even if they never left campus, even if they didn't do anything except have one internship, right? Okay, here's another one. Seconds after my unbalanced Nolan Ryan wind-up, all I could feel was my thumb twisted in an unfamiliar shape. Okay, that's as close as anyone in here is allowed to get to describing bodily functions, okay? You're not allowed to talk about bodily functions in your essays. A broken arm is okay, a broken thumb is okay, right? But we don't need any more gory details. That's as good as it gets, right? Because all of us went, right? Here he has gone to wind up the ball and something's gone terribly awry. But we're inside his experience, right? Just don't take us any further inside, okay? Excruciating pain, bodily fluids, that's it, all right? But we can feel with you, right? All right. How about this one? This is a sort of like undercut version. I have to admit that for most of my life, attending medical school was an afterthought, just an afterthought. It wasn't the main goal. It wasn't the plan. Okay. So, no matter how you start your story, no matter what particular direction you take us in the beginning, you got to keep us asking, where are we going to go, right? And so when you get to the end, you've got to revisit that opening story. I know it's really cheesy. Most of the time, we would not do this cheesy thing where we come back to the beginning, but in application essays, it's 100% what we do. We come back to the beginning. We re-emphasize our main theme, whatever the main theme was. If your theme was persistence or empathy, cool, that's what we're doing, right? Pick up on your theme, figure out what your theme is, figure out what stories are going to help us understand that theme, and then point us to the future. Where does this story take us? What's your firm plan going forward, okay? Get us back here and then pull us forward. So here, I'll give you the ending for the KISS essay, okay? The KISS essay ends with, it will be worth the hardships to hear from a patient the same sentiment that Alex leaves me with every week. Thanks, Dave. I had a really great time today. So we didn't get the middle of the story here, right? But we know how it started and we know how it ended. And part of it wasn't so much about KISS after all. It was about that friendship. That's not an unusual thing. How many of you have a friend? One friend, somebody you met here at UT, somebody up from home, right? Everybody's got a friend, right? A friendship is a totally reasonable thing to write about, especially if it tells us about the kind of person you are and the kind of person that your friendship has made you today, right? So I think that when we think about the kinds of essay writing we're doing, we're just talking about who we are, and we're doing it in a way that helps you know who I am and I know who you are, right? Through our words, right? We have to be evocative. We have to tell us who we are. He's the kind of guy who made Alex's day, right? He's the kind of guy who, we know that Dave, right, is the kind of guy who appreciates his friend and understands that it's going to be hard to be a doctor, right? He's applying for medical school, okay? All right, so for you, what does this look like? I got you started today with some thinking about abstract qualities that you would attach to yourself, an epiphany moment that you've had. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to get out your phone or piece of paper that you've been jotting notes on, your planner, and tell me, when's the first essay due? You know the first essay? Anybody know when the first essay is due? When's it due? December 15th, very common date. Anybody got December 15th? Anybody got a different date than December 15th? December? When is it? January 15th, yep. Anything? December 1st, yeah? Other dates? May. So in general, most of the graduate school applications, if you want to start next fall, will start November, December, maybe end January. Sometimes weirdo programs that have acceptances all the way till May, right? But you need to know what that date is. So you write that date down. Okay, now how are you going to work back, right? You plot your way to that deadline by thinking about what have you got to do to get there, right? So if you know what your deadline is, now we're working our way backwards, right? How much time do you think you need to give to brainstorming? How much time do you need to give yourself to write a first draft? You don't have to brainstorm alone. You can make an appointment with me in the Writing Center, and we'll brainstorm together. You could also brainstorm at home. You could answer every single question on your brainstorming thing and generate 500 pages for yourself, right? You might need to do some journaling and some thinking time, some writing time to get where you want to be. But I think that in the end, you can't ask this question, is your essay relevant, memorable, and interesting, until you work through all the possibilities that you hold within, right? And I don't know, right? Sometimes when I brainstorm with somebody, it's literally like me just interviewing you. How do I know you? How do I really know you? I mean, you can bring your resume, right? But I need to know you, and you need to know yourself so that you can share the most important, the most interesting, the most memorable stories, the things that would tell us the most about you. Okay, so your writing timeline is working back from that date. Whatever that date is, you're working back. Okay. And let me add this. Especially for those of you who have that December 1 or December 15th deadline. What time of year is that? Finals. Yeah, and Christmas. We'll be getting, look, most of the time, and when I was working in an admissions office, I would work between Christmas and New Year's. That was when I was like sorting files and getting things ready. So I think that one of the things to think about is, yeah, that's what's happening to your stuff over break, is that people are working, not here at UT, we're closed, right? But some universities are open, and that's what they're doing, is assembling all those admissions files.
but you're finishing this up during finals? That doesn't sound like a very stressful time at UT. That doesn't sound like right after you come back from Thanksgiving break and then have to barrel straight forward into chaos for 2 weeks. I definitely think if I had an application due December 1st or December 15th, I would be doing my brainstorming on October 1st. I would be getting a draft done by October 15th and making an appointment with Career Services and Writing Center. Because guess who else is in the Writing Center? Not even December. Let's start November 1st. Every person on campus, right? So the earlier you get this stuff done and start working with one of us here in Career Services or in the Writing Center, the more attention we can give you. Sometimes my clients come at the Writing Center, they come in and meet with me 3 or 4 times before they're ready to be done and turn their application essays in. And you better believe those are polished essays by the time they're done, right? Sometimes it takes us a little bit of time to figure out what's the right story to tell. So we're planning backwards. 2 months, that's not a lot of time. Okay, so you heard Stephanie advise you that you're going to have Don Asher coming here. We have a copy of Graduate Admission Essays. They have a copy of this book. You don't have to buy it and come by and borrow it and sit there and read for a little while. We've got lots of books that have sample essays. You can, of course, go online. But you have some other people that might be able to help you. First of all, do you know any graduate students? Here at UT, if you know graduate students in a graduate program, you should ask to see their stuff, for sure. Same thing works for jobs, right? Do you know somebody who has a job that you want? You should ask to see their materials. But you can go to the Center for Career Development. They've given you a handout. I've given you a handout for the Writing Center. Your professors are not here in the room with you, but they are excellent resources. They are, however, overworked and underpaid. Therefore, when you talk to them about your materials, you need to have work done already. So you certainly can ask them and engage them in office hours and talk to them, you know, hey, can I set up a meeting with you? But don't abuse their time over email, right? Say, can I meet with you when? Okay, right? Set up a meeting. Have a focused question. Have done some of your homework before you go talk to them. And then maybe ask them, you know, what are you looking for when you admit someone to this program, right? What matters to you? Okay, so your professors can help, but be careful and thoughtful about how you do that. Okay, last thing I want to tell you is that we, in the Writing Center, we have a walk-in facility. You can just come in and get help. We can give you help for about 20 minutes in a walk-in situation. For writing applications, we know it usually takes more time. Same thing in Career Services, I'm sure, that drop-ins are okay, but not ideal. And so for the application materials, we have a special calendar. It's through a program called MyWC Online. As you can imagine, there are writing centers at other schools too. So MyWC Online is the generic site, and we just have our extension, UTK. If you go to that website right now, you can sign up for an appointment with me or one of the other application materials help tutors. So all of us that are coaching in there, we have our own times blocked out, and you can meet with us. You can go in and search, right? You have to create an account. So it says first-time user created an account, and then you choose from the menu, application materials help, and you'll choose fall 2019. We have a bunch of other things that we do one-on-one help with. And it's free, and we're happy to meet with you. You come over to HSS and meet with us. Yeah, question? Yeah, so alumni always have access to Career Services. Yes? Yeah, I don't know if it's on now. I might turn it off.
1 year past graduation, but there is an alumni career services that could offer help beyond that. And you're always welcome to come to events as well.
We sometimes have alumni come in, but it's definitely on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Great. And you're here on campus sometimes? We'd see you for sure. Yeah. But I mean, it's one of those things that's much easier to do if you're still studying, for sure. And especially for all of you juniors and seniors, don't wait. Don't wait. We're happy to have you, but we don't wait because it's better to do this now when you're not busy with a job or traveling from another city. Yeah, absolutely. Question? Yep. 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 Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things you're trying to do is think about what kind of story you're telling about yourself, right? Now, I also would think about that being the instance of informality, right, in a longer essay that demonstrates your maturity as a writer. But yeah, I think that there's a sense that when you write one of these personal essays, these application essays, that you're writing an academic paper. It's not an academic paper. You're not citing sources, right? This is not an instance where the data matters. What matters in a personal essay is the story. The story matters, and storytelling takes lots of different voices. So even, I mean, I think about those examples earlier on. Some of them are pretty formal, despite being about sort of everyday things, right? The Nolan Ryan wind-up, there's nothing there that's informal. This one, right, we could say, who would have thought I would have spent 2 years of my life talking about parasites? Yeah, right? It certainly suggests a speakerly tone, right, to it. So I think you're right to pay attention to those details, but honestly, I'd rather have the story first, and then we can talk about how to modulate tone through use of contractions or formal or informal language. Does that make sense? More questions about language? Look, that stuff we're definitely going to get into. We're definitely going to get in there. There's Chancellor Plowman hanging out. All right, so you know how to find us. We know how to find you. And you've got an assessment for us to do? Great. So we would love for you to grab your smartphone and go right to srs.campuslabs.com into any browser. So if you've got Safari or Chrome or whatever garbage browser you have on your phone, and then you use the Connect ID 6916, and then you can enter any letters you want, your actual initials, or you can make up letters. We don't care. We just want the assessment. srs.campuslabs.com into any browser. This is like, it's my job. You know, it's a thing. How long of an assessment is it? 3 or 4 questions. Questions? You have us for 20 more minutes if you want us. I'll tell you more endings. I have more endings. Anything else?
one final thought I would share is just not to be scared of this process or to feel like it has to be something really big. I remember writing statements and feeling like I'm so ordinary. What am I going to write about that's interesting? Because I know we keep saying you emphasizing you've got to tell a story, you've got to be unique. But I think that's where sitting down with somebody could really help you, because I have found at times where I've just sat with students and something that you think is not at all interesting really is. And so again, maybe if you have volunteered in a hospital or you've worked in a hospital, there could have been a patient that made an impact on you, and then your story starts with that patient. So, you know, again, don't think it has to be something super grand and
that was the best thing. What was it? Was it Allison or Lauren? I can't remember her name now. Lauren shared with us. She shared with us, like, I'm so glad it was her, not like somebody who was like, you know, I almost died this summer, right? Because people have those stories too. But many of us just have the stories where we were sitting at a desk. Guess what? We don't admit ordinary people to the University of Tennessee. I know you. You're not ordinary. Your life is not ordinary. You have things that you are proud of, people that love you, experiences that have formed you into the person that's sitting right here today. Yes, you all kind of look alike to me now, right? Right? I always joke to my students, you know, long legs, shorts, long hair. That's like 75% of my students, right? Okay, right? That doesn't mean anything, right? I look like everybody's mom now. Not, right? You don't know me. You don't know my story, right? I've got something to tell you. Everybody's got something. Everybody has something, right? And you could start small, right? You could tell someone a story about something that you're wearing. I didn't do this today, but one of my writing instructors says, just tell me the story of this watch. Tell me the story of this ring. Tell me the story of your shoes. Everybody's shoes tell you something, right? You chose those shoes for a reason, right? You could have, I don't think any of us have the same shoes on in here. That's pretty remarkable, right? Usually something you're wearing, something you chose to put on you today tells you something unique. So come hang out with us, and we'll do some more brainstorming with you in person so you can find out what is weird and wonderful about you and why some graduate program has to have you, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
so follow up with the Writing Center, the Center for Career Development, come out to other events this month.
Great.
We'd love to see you there, and have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Okay.